Ladies and gentlemen, every single one of us comes here today carrying problems. Some are loud, some are silent. Some are visible to the world, and some are hidden behind smiles. Financial stress, academic pressure, broken relationships, fear of the future, lack of confidence, lack of direction. And we keep asking the same question again and again. Why is my life so complicated? Why do I have so many problems? Today, I want to tell you something that may shock you. Most of your problems are not unique, they are not mysterious, and they are not permanent. In fact, there is one simple trick that can fix almost all of them. Not overnight, not magically, but permanently. Ladies and gentlemen, most of the problems that trouble our lives today do not appear suddenly or without warning. They are not accidents, and they are not always caused by bad luck or difficult circumstances. In reality, most problems grow from one simple habit we all fall into at some point: avoiding responsibility. Not responsibility in a heavy or frightening sense, but the small, everyday responsibility of owning our actions, our choices, and our direction in life. From a young age, many of us are taught to look outside ourselves for answers. When something goes wrong, we are encouraged to ask who is at fault. The teacher did not explain well, the system is unfair, the timing was wrong, the opportunity never came. Slowly, without realizing it, we train our minds to escape responsibility because it feels safer. Responsibility demands effort, and effort demands discomfort. But avoiding responsibility does not remove pain, it only delays it. When we ignore responsibility, problems quietly grow in the background. A missed deadline becomes academic stress. Poor habits become health issues. Lack of discipline becomes regret. What begins as a small decision to avoid effort turns into a heavy burden later. Responsibility is often misunderstood. People think it means blaming yourself for everything or carrying unnecessary guilt. That is not true. Responsibility simply means accepting that you have control over your response, even if you do not control the situation. You may not choose where you start, but you always choose what you do next. When someone avoids responsibility, they give away their power. They wait for motivation, for perfect conditions, for someone else to fix things. But the truth is, life does not reward waiting. Life responds to action, and action only begins when responsibility is accepted. Think about how many problems exist today because of small things ignored yesterday. A student avoids studying for one test, then another, and suddenly failure feels inevitable. A person avoids difficult conversations, and relationships slowly collapse. Someone avoids improving their skills, and years later they feel stuck and left behind. None of these problems appeared overnight. They grew because responsibility was postponed. Taking responsibility is uncomfortable at first because it forces honesty. It forces you to admit that your current situation is partly the result of your past choices. That truth can hurt the ego, but it also unlocks freedom. Because if your choices created your problems, your choices can also solve them. The moment you say, "This is my responsibility," you stop being helpless. You may still struggle, you may still fail, but you are no longer powerless. Responsibility shifts your focus from excuses to solutions. Instead of asking why life is unfair, you start asking what you can do differently. Many people confuse responsibility with pressure. They believe accepting responsibility will make life heavier. In reality, avoiding responsibility is what makes life heavy. It fills your mind with anxiety, guilt, and fear. Responsibility, on the other hand, brings clarity. It simplifies decisions, it gives you direction. When you accept responsibility, you stop running from discomfort and start growing through it. Growth has always required effort. There is no growth without friction. Muscles grow through resistance, character grows through challenges, wisdom grows through mistakes that are owned, not ignored. Avoiding responsibility often shows itself as overthinking. People think endlessly but act rarely. Overthinking feels safe because it creates the illusion of progress. But thinking without action is another form of avoidance. Responsibility demands movement, even imperfect movement. Life becomes more manageable when you take responsibility in small ways. Waking up on time, completing tasks even when you are tired, admitting mistakes instead of defending them. These actions seem simple, but they build a strong foundation. Strong foundations support peaceful lives. When responsibility becomes a habit, problems lose their power to intimidate you. You stop seeing obstacles as threats and start seeing them as tasks. Tasks can be handled. Threats create fear. Responsibility transforms fear into action. There is also a deep sense of self-respect that comes from responsibility. When you keep promises to yourself, your confidence grows naturally. You no longer need validation from others because you trust yourself. That trust is priceless. Avoiding responsibility may feel comfortable today, but it always charges interest tomorrow. Responsibility may feel uncomfortable today, but it pays rewards in the future. Discipline, growth, peace, and confidence all come from the same source: ownership of your life. The most powerful shift you can make is not changing your environment, your friends, or your circumstances. It is changing your mindset. From avoidance to ownership. The day you stop running from responsibility is the day your problems begin to shrink. Ladies and gentlemen, one of the greatest sources of stress, frustration, and confusion in life comes from focusing our energy on things we cannot control. We worry about what people think of us, how others behave, what the future holds, how quickly success will come, and whether circumstances will ever change in our favor. This habit slowly drains our mental strength and leaves us feeling powerless, even when we are capable of far more than we realize. From the moment we wake up, our minds begin to chase uncertainty. We think about outcomes instead of actions. We obsess over results instead of effort. We replay past mistakes and fear future failures. None of this gives us control, yet we continue doing it because the mind prefers familiarity over effectiveness. The truth is simple but uncomfortable. You cannot control everything, but you can always control something. And that something is enough to change your life. The moment you shift your focus from what is uncontrollable to what is controllable, clarity replaces chaos. Most people waste their best energy fighting reality. They complain about the system, the economy, unfair teachers, difficult parents, or toxic environments. While some of these struggles are real, constant focus on them creates a mindset of helplessness. When you believe everything is outside your control, you stop trying. And when you stop trying, problems multiply. Focusing on what you can control does not mean ignoring difficulties. It means refusing to let difficulties decide your behavior. It means understanding that even in the worst situations, your attitude, effort, and choices still belong to you. Consider how much time people spend worrying about results. Students worry about grades instead of study habits. Professionals worry about promotions instead of improving skills. Individuals worry about respect instead of self-discipline. Results are always delayed outcomes of controllable actions. When you focus on actions, results take care of themselves. Control begins with attention. Whatever you give attention to grows. When you focus on obstacles, fear grows. When you focus on effort, strength grows. When you focus on excuses, weakness grows. When you focus on discipline, confidence grows. Life becomes simpler when you narrow your focus. Instead of trying to fix your entire future, you fix today. Instead of trying to impress everyone, you improve yourself. Instead of worrying about winning, you focus on preparation. There is great peace in accepting limits. You stop arguing with reality. You stop demanding guarantees. You stop waiting for perfect conditions. You begin working with what you have, where you are, right now. That acceptance is not surrender, it is strategy. People often say they feel overwhelmed because they have too many problems. In reality, they are overwhelmed because they are trying to control too much. When you try to control everything, you control nothing. When you control your effort, your time, and your habits, life becomes manageable. Focusing on controllables builds resilience. When failure comes, you do not collapse because your identity is not tied to outcomes. You ask yourself simple questions. Did I give my best effort? Did I prepare honestly? Did I act with discipline? If the answer is yes, you move forward stronger, regardless of the result. This mindset also protects you from comparison. Comparison thrives on uncontrollable factors, other people's timelines, advantages, backgrounds, and luck. When you focus on your controllables, comparison loses power. Your only competition becomes your past self. Control also brings responsibility back into your hands. Instead of waiting for motivation, you rely on routine. Instead of hoping for confidence, you build competence. Instead of wishing for clarity, you take action and let clarity follow. Ever. Y-Day offers small areas of control: how you speak, how you listen, how you work, how you treat others, how you treat yourself. These small choices shape your character. Character shapes decisions. Decisions shape destiny. When life feels uncertain, controlling the basics creates stability. Sleeping on time, eating well, moving your body, focusing on one task at a time. These simple acts may seem ordinary, but they anchor you in reality. They remind you that you are not powerless. Anxiety lives in the future. Regret lives in the past. Control lives in the present. The more you train your mind to stay in what you can do now, the quieter anxiety becomes. You stop chasing certainty and start building strength. Focusing on what you can control is not glamorous. It does not make headlines. It does not offer instant rewards. But it works. It works quietly, daily, consistently. It builds a life that is steady, grounded, and resilient, no matter how unpredictable the world becomes. When you master this habit, problems no longer feel like storms that destroy you. They become challenges that shape you. One of the most common reasons people feel stuck in life is not lack of intelligence, lack of resources, or lack of opportunity. It is the habit of thinking too much and doing too little. Overthinking has become a silent epidemic. It disguises itself as planning, analysis, and preparation. But in reality, it often serves one purpose: avoiding action. The human mind is powerful, but it can also be deceptive. It tells you that you need to be fully ready before you begin, that you need clarity before movement, that you need confidence before effort. But life does not work in that order. Clarity comes after action. Confidence is built through effort. Readiness is created by starting, not waiting. Overthinking feels productive because it keeps you busy without exposing you to failure. As long as you are thinking, you are safe from criticism. As long as you are planning, you are protected from mistakes. But safety is not growth. Comfort is not progress. Action is the only bridge between where you are and where you want to be. Every meaningful improvement in life begins with imperfect action. No one starts confident. No one starts certain. People become capable by doing, not by imagining. The first attempt is always uncomfortable, and that discomfort is often mistaken for danger. But discomfort is simply a signal that you are stretching beyond your current limits. When you delay action, problems gain strength. Fear grows louder. Doubt becomes convincing. The task feels heavier than it actually is. But when you act, even in small ways, the mind begins to quiet down. Action creates evidence. Evidence replaces fear with facts. Many people wait for motivation to act, not realizing that motivation is a result of action, not a cause. You do not feel motivated and then work. You work, and then motivation follows. Energy increases after movement, not before it. Think about how often people say they will start tomorrow. Tomorrow feels safer because it removes responsibility from today. But tomorrow is a promise that has no discipline attached to it. Action today, even if it is small, creates momentum. Momentum is more powerful than motivation. Perfectionism is another form of overthinking. It convinces you that if you cannot do something perfectly, it is better not to do it at all. But perfection is not the goal. Progress is. Progress requires repetition, and repetition requires action. Mistakes are not signs of failure, they are signs of effort. When you act, you learn. When you learn, you adjust. When you adjust, you improve. This cycle cannot begin without movement. Waiting to feel ready only delays growth. Action also builds self-trust. Each time you do what you said you would do, you send a message to your mind that you are reliable. That trust compounds over time. Confidence is not a personality trait, it is a byproduct of consistent action. Overthinking often focuses on worst-case scenarios. The mind imagines embarrassment, rejection, failure, and loss. But most of these scenarios never happen, and even when they do, they are rarely as damaging as imagined. Action reveals that you are more resilient than your fears suggest. Small actions have powerful effects. Writing one page, studying for 30 minutes, making one phone call, starting one conversation. These actions break the cycle of avoidance. They shift your identity from someone who thinks to someone who does. The world does not reward intentions, it rewards execution. Good ideas without action remain fantasies. Potential without effort remains unused. Action is the language through which potential becomes reality. When you choose action over overthinking, you take control of your life. You stop being trapped inside your head and start engaging with the real world. Progress becomes visible. Problems become manageable. There will never be a moment when everything feels perfectly aligned. Waiting for that moment is waiting forever. The people who move ahead are not braver or smarter, they are simply willing to act before they feel ready. Action simplifies life. It reduces confusion. It replaces anxiety with experience. It turns fear into feedback. And most importantly, it reminds you that you are capable of handling more than you think. The habit of acting, even when uncertain, builds a life of momentum, growth, and strength. One of the biggest myths ever sold to people is the idea that motivation is the key to success. We are told to wait until we feel inspired, energized, and ready before we take action. We are shown stories of people who wake up every day feeling passionate and driven, as if motivation is something permanent and reliable, but real life does not work that way. Motivation is emotional, and emotions are unstable. They change with mood, weather, results, and circumstances. Discipline, on the other hand, does not depend on how you feel. That is why discipline always beats motivation. Motivation comes and goes. Some days you feel excited to work, to study, to improve yourself. Other days you feel tired, bored, frustrated, or discouraged. If your progress depends on motivation, your progress will be inconsistent. And inconsistency is one of the main reasons people fail, not lack of talent or intelligence. Discipline is the decision to act, even when motivation is absent. It is choosing to do what needs to be done, regardless of how you feel in that moment. Discipline is not loud or dramatic. It is quiet. It is routine. It is showing up when no one is watching and when nothing feels exciting. Most people wait to feel good before they act. Disciplined people act first, and feeling good follows later. This is a powerful reversal. When you act consistently, your mind adapts. Resistance becomes weaker. Tasks feel easier. Confidence grows naturally. Discipline trains your mind to stop negotiating with excuses. Think about how many goals fail because people rely on motivation. They start strong, full of excitement, making big promises. Then the excitement fades. Life gets busy. Comfort becomes tempting. Slowly, effort disappears. Discipline prevents this collapse because it does not ask for permission from emotions. Discipline is not about punishment or suffering. It is about structure. Structure creates freedom. When your day has structure, your mind feels calmer. You waste less energy deciding what to do next. You conserve willpower because habits take over. Discipline simplifies life. When you build discipline, you reduce stress. You stop procrastinating, and unfinished tasks no longer haunt your mind. You stop rushing at the last moment. You stop living in constant guilt. Discipline replaces chaos with order. Many people think disciplined people are born that way. That is not true. Discipline is trained. It starts small. It begins with simple commitments kept daily, waking up at the same time, doing the work even when it feels boring, completing tasks before distractions. These actions may seem ordinary, but they build extraordinary strength. Discipline also protects you from regret. Motivation may push you to start, but discipline ensures you finish. Finishing builds pride. Pride builds self-respect. Self-respect changes how you see yourself. When you see yourself as someone who follows through, your standards rise naturally. There is a deep confidence that comes from discipline. It is not loud or arrogant. It is calm and grounded. You trust yourself because you have proof. You have shown up before. You have done hard things before. That trust is unshakable. Discipline also creates momentum. Once you start acting consistently, stopping feels harder than continuing. Effort becomes normal. Laziness feels uncomfortable. Discipline changes what feels natural to you. People often say they lack motivation, but what they truly lack is discipline. Motivation is external. Discipline is internal. Motivation depends on circumstances. Discipline depends on commitment. Discipline does not mean being perfect. It means being consistent. Missing one day does not break discipline. Quitting does. Discipline allows mistakes but does not allow excuses to become habits. In difficult times, motivation disappears first. Discipline remains. That is why disciplined people survive pressure better. When life becomes hard, they rely on systems, not feelings. Systems do not panic. Systems do not overthink. Systems simply execute. Discipline also teaches patience. Results take time. Motivation wants quick rewards. Discipline understands delayed gratification. It accepts that progress is slow, invisible, and sometimes boring, but it continues anyway. When you live a disciplined life, you stop depending on external validation. You do not need praise to continue. You do not need applause to work. Your satisfaction comes from knowing you did what you said you would do. This is why discipline beats motivation every single time. Motivation may start the journey, but discipline is what carries you through storms, boredom, doubt, and fatigue. It is the quiet force that builds strong lives, stable minds, and reliable success. Discipline does not promise comfort, but it guarantees growth.